My name is Maria Barber. For those who don't know me, welcome to the Youth Transition Webinar Series for 2026. Well, thank you for joining us today. I'll be your host for the series. Again, my name is Maria Barber. I am an Associate Project Coordinator with the Family Navigation Network project, which sits within the Nevada Center for Excellence in Disabilities. Our team is made up of parents, caregivers, and advocates with all lived disability experience. We support families with youth with special healthcare needs. We navigate complex healthcare systems here in Nevada together, and the Family Navigation Network receives support from our funder, Vocational Rehab of Nevada. This series is focused on supporting youth with disabilities as they move from their journey from a youth to a young adult. There are many complexities that come along with that journey, and our team is here to support the community in any way possible. I am living that journey. In fact, today is my daughter's 20th birthday. She lives with cerebral palsy. And so that I'm also navigating this complex system, which can be intimidating, as can the need for independence and asserting that independence and teaching how to even do that and move through self-advocacy. So that led me to create this series of workshops around transition. We will be recording the series and we will send out the recordings to everybody who is here today. And then we will be editing the recordings and adding captioning, and they will be posted on YouTube following that process. So thank you for joining us. We really appreciate having you. Today we have two engaging topics and amazing speakers. From 9 to 10:15 this morning is unique transition service implementation in the rurals, the challenges and successes, even through the limitations of smaller communities. So Skye Phillips will be joining us today, and LeighAnn Hill is our transition expert from Elko. Skye is from the Lander Humboldt County areas, and LeighAnn is recorded into this session today. She couldn't be with us, but we'll still be able to get her feedback. And then from 10:15 to 11:30 is supported decision making and guardianship with Alex Cherup. So Skye, feel free to introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Skye Phillips, and I am a nationally certified school psychologist, as well as the current director of transition services in Lander County School District. For those of you that may not be as familiar with where Lander County is in Humboldt County, that was my prior placement for 5 years. It's in very far northern Nevada, very isolated, small towns, population of 8,000, population of 4,000. So we don't have quite the access that our sister counties that might have for community services, school support, student services, especially for transition services into young adulthood. We still have a lot available to us and many free resources out there. So I'm going to highlight a little bit of how I've built up our transition services over time, since I kind of got voluntold into it in my very first internship out in Humboldt County all the way up through now when I specialize in the domain. So I'm going to start presenting with y'all. Minimize this guy over here. I will highlight throughout my presentation. If anyone has any questions or comments, go ahead and leave those in the chat just because I won't be able to see the engagement on the screen as I do the presentation. As noted, I've got LeighAnn Hill's input in here as well, as the president in DCDT as well as Elko County to direct those transition services. So I will try to address any questions if we have time here at the end. And our focus is going to be building up transition services in your own capacity when there aren't as many programs available, or if you're trying to be a bridge builder to bring more transition services to your child or in your community. skip the slide here. So this is just a little bit about who's presenting you today. So LeighAnn Hill will have some recordings implemented into this presentation. She is the Transition and Compliance Coordinator of Elko County School District, and she is the Nevada President for DCDT, which is the Division on Career Development and Transition. If you are not familiar with that resource, they have a website that has a fabulous plethora of resources on there for educators, for families, for young adults, just kind of everything under the sun outside of our Nevada specific. This is more of on that national and international level. And this is just a little visual. I'm a big supporter of visuals to kind of get an idea of where we're located. So outside of our primaries in Vegas and Reno, Lander is kind of smack dab there in the middle. Humboldt is way up above on that border of Oregon. One of our schools, McDermott, actually has their football field cut right in half, so we're very far north up there, and then Elko up in the corner. And then our primary vocations out there are mining, gold and lithium, ranching, and casinos.
This slide shows Elko County School District demographics of schools. We have 3 different schools in a different time zone. We also have Carlin, which is a K-12, and then we have Elko has 4 elementaries, 1 intermediate, 1 middle school, and 1 high school. Spring Creek has 3 elementaries, 1 middle school, 1 high school. Rural schools, we have 5 of those. We also have our adult education, and then Battleborn Youth Challenge Academy, which is a quasi-military school through the National Guard in Carlin, Nevada.
So we have fairly different span and demographic when it comes to our 2 counties, though we are both rural between Elko and Lander County. As you could see there, Elko is still a fairly large county. They have a bit more available to them compared to what we have in Lander, but I've used their model largely to develop ours. So here in Lander County School District, we serve approximately 1,000 students. Within our kind of Battle Mountain zone, we have an early childhood center, which serves 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, as well as the elementary school, Battle Mountain Elementary, which is kinder through 4th. Our junior high school, which is kind of a combination middle school for 5th through 8th, and then our high school and distance education center, which is 9th through adult ed. And then we have some students from Crescent Valley that we also bus over into Lander County School District, and then we have an Austin combined schoolhouse, which houses all grades, and we're actually looking at expanding hopefully to some more early childhood exposure as well. So quite a bit smaller, even though we're in a similar geographic area as far as rural isolated zones.
Elko County District has over 9,700 students. Geographically, we are the second largest area of any school district in the 49 states. We have a variety of school types, and the district has 7 distinct communities with 1,100 staff members.
So one of the things that Elko County has that LeighAnn was a big champion of is the Transition Alliance team, which includes special education teachers from each school sites, as well as the coordinators to really be able to roll out information across their districts succinctly because they are so large. Apologies, let me go back a little bit here. Sorry about that. And that their mission statement is really just to provide that quality and access to transition services across the lifespan. So one of the largest things that LeighAnn is working on currently with this team is to really create a scope and sequence from early transition going into 14 years old when Nevada requires we have that within IEPs and onwards out into adulthood. So this is kind of our makeup of what we have available formally in Lander County School District. While we don't have a formal transition team, because we are so small, we have really focused on that student-led component of transition services. So we do support and participate in the Nevada Student Leadership Teams, which is funded through the Department of Education here in Nevada. For inclusive services. And on here we have seven student leaders, the transition director, which is myself as the school psychologist, the transition lead, which is a special educator, and then two adult allies. We have a special education paraprofessional as well as a school counselor that really helps us champion these services that kind of mimics what they're trying to do out there in Elko. So since last year, we've come very far in building up our transition program since we've established this partnership. Being able to liaison with different entities in the community, such as through VR. Nevada Behavioral Autism did a partnership with VR to give us live in-person trainers for things like pre-ETs. We were able to get some grant funding to be able to have a PACE lab, which is a vocational experience, kind of curriculum-esque place for our students to be able to go in and learn skills of a variety of models. In case you're not familiar with PACE Lab, it's things like computer skills, basic cleaning skills, cooking skills, kind of like a daily life skills course, but with those vocational skills and soft skills implemented within it,
Hey,
as well as
Sky,
yes.
would you please slow down just a tiny bit for the interpreters?
Apologies. Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry for our translation. Thank you.
That's okay. That's okay.
Some other things we've been working on would be bolstering self-determination instruction. So we do that one through the activities from the state with the NSLTS, which is that student leadership team, to be able to help students advocate for their IEPs and their accommodations. And our students have actually even taken it a step farther and presented to our school board about changing their IEP culture. They did a little professional development survey in our schools to see which educators would like what kind of training. And they had a resounding yes of over 78% that they want more training for students with IEPs, accommodations, how they can adjust strategies, and then really championing their student-led IEPs because it is their voice, it's them as an individual. Some other components we have brought into our district is we have brought educators to transition-specific training through the transition conference, such as this one. We've sent them here, as well as having some state entities like Jennifer Kane provide some Indicator 13 to our district. As well as some self-led training from myself to our different general educators, as well as special educators to promote early transition services all the way through elementary and onwards into adulthood, so starting early. Some other components we've brought on are supporting adaptive curriculum, so getting more functional skills within the school setting, as well as bringing in some different curriculum aspects, such as attainment. Establishing some middle school transition instruction as well within the PACE Lab. So what that looked like is we have something we called PBLs, which is project-based learning for our 8th graders at the junior high. And they were engaging in kind of a long essay format, vocational transition assignment at the end of the year, and many struggled. As we know, with those with hidden as well as aware disabilities, sometimes those different implicit skills for even academics are delayed. So we came up with a program last year to bring them up to our PACE Lab at the high school to start a transition portfolio and get some familiarity with the program. So they engaged in projects like discovering what celebrities out there have disabilities and their success, going through Pathful Explore and getting familiar with the program and learning about the different vocational opportunities and supports they'll have out there. Taking different surveys to find out where their affinities lie and their strengths and their weaknesses and how we can support them on that. So they felt confident coming in as a 9th grader to our high school and had something a little more meaningful for their portfolio, as well as building things like resumes and practicing interviewing skills.
As the Elko County Transition Coordinator, I developed a Transition Alliance team, which is a member from each high school that works specifically with special ed students to enhance their career exploration and build partnerships with local businesses. These are our other goals.
So as you can see here, their TAT team, these are the main goals that they're hoping to be able to increase. So improving that job readiness component, getting internship access and mentorship opportunities. A large portion that you all have probably been hearing about within the Nevada trip Something that is funded through our state that's being really pushed out is many districts get to pilot some funding from this big grant that the state got, which includes someone that is a liaison in the community to build those mentorship opportunities and internship opportunities throughout the summer with our local businesses and actually get to have some live experience. I had the pleasure to get to go and shadow one of those experiences here in Humboldt County to be able to see how they do it as we prep for next year for us to get that position, that stipend. And we have a local ice cream shop where we have students actually get to do live work experience and have mentorship through it. So really, really fabulous partnerships that they're bringing to the community with that support from the state. And that will be rolling out over the next couple years to all counties within Nevada.
In each part of local businesses. These are our other goals.
Sorry about
that. Curriculum integration utilizing PACE labs.
Apologies, everyone. I had the wrong time written down for her next slide. Give me one moment here.
We've developed part of the enhancements we've made in our schools is we've developed curriculum integration utilizing PACE labs in each high school, coordinating with CTE courses and the CTE advisor, career readiness coaches. We have 2 of those that are sponsored through MOU with VR. We developed a scope and sequence for grades 6 through 12. We have included job shadowing, work-based learning, school-based enterprises at some of the high schools, and enhanced transition services in all the IEPs. Few of the opportunities we've expanded with are the Nevada Student Leadership Team Summit. We are incorporating more of those teams at each high school and eventually want to have a transition opportunity district-wide for those students. We also, the Crave Summer Camp has become a day camp, and we collaborate with VR and GBC and neighboring counties. We partner with community schools. I attend monthly PACE Coalition meetings and Elko Chamber Commerce business meetings to enhance our collaborations.
In case anyone isn't familiar with things like Crave Summer Camp is, it's something that is supported through vocational rehab to be able to give some kind of pre-ETS instruction and some different vocational skills as a summer-based camp. At this time, they're planning to have one in Elko as well as Winnemucca, and we're kind of partnering to see if we can't bus out some of our students from Battle Mountain too. And then community and schools, in case you're not familiar with what that entity is, it is a funded operation where they can bring different levels of need and instruction to our students, whether that be like Maslow's hierarchy, where it's food, as well as hygiene, whatever they need support there, linking them to different supports in the community that the families may need, and then also providing support for academics or future life career readiness for our students, whether they be general education or special education in our communities. And so this is kind of that expanded opportunity of how we're mimicking these kind of opportunities in Elko here in Lander County School District through that Crave Summer Camp support as well, trying to get that established. And for the NSLTS, something that LeighAnn and I both really loved is they used to have an in-person student summit. It's actually what just got me into transition when I was an intern, where students got to come together across the state of Nevada, learn about different programs and supports that were available in their community. And now it has all moved virtual since COVID. We're hoping to potentially create one of our own where we could have different colleges, careers, kind of like a career fair come together, as well as opportunity like having the Disability Resource Center, the Family Navigation Network, getting those different partners and entities out toward us. We're in very, very early talks. We haven't quite gotten to development, but we'd like to be able to host our own for the rules as well. So our partnership with Elko County has been huge. They have a rural transition team meeting with all the coordinators as well that they have invited us to, and they're very open to sharing resources. So making those partnerships and reaching out to those specialists, they don't like to hoard the information. We want to roll it all out to all. So that has been huge, is creating those partners. And then hearing things for partners such as the Youth Action Council, which is young adults with disabilities and lived experience, being able to bring them to present to our district and really inspire and mentor our young students that are advocating on the NSLTS, and then bringing more work-based vocational opportunities and partnerships such as through CTE or things like the PACE Lab and various Project Discover opportunities to be able to give them more and more access for what we don't normally have. Okay, I am gonna take a pause here and stop sharing for a brief moment so I can share a video that Miss LeighAnn Hill would like provided. And this was one of their components for partnership with GBC in Elko.
Hi, and welcome to Great Basin College. I'm Arista Sweat, Director of Accessibility Services, and I want to share some of the resources available to you here at the college. So as Accessibility Services Director, I connect students with disabilities with accommodations they need to be successful in class. So if you have a disability and you need accommodations, make sure to register with my office, the Disability Resource Center, or the DRC. Please be aware, if you have a 504 plan or IEP coming from high school, you still need to register with my office. Those do not transfer over to college. Also, I'm speaking to you from Burke Hall on our Elko campus. And inside of Burke Hall are housed a lot of resources you need to take advantage of. We've got the admissions office. They help you with your application questions. They help you with transferring your credits if you want to transfer to another institution. We've got the advising office. The advising office helps you pace out your classes. They can give you advice on what types of programs are right for your career goals. And they also can help you redirect if you need to change course. We have the controller's office. They help you with your payments and setting up payment plans. And also, last but not least, is our financial. We're here to help you with your scholarships, grants, and any other financial aid needs that you have. So make sure that you stop by and visit with them and check in with their resources. And if you can't come to the Elko campus into Burke Hall, make sure you visit our website at gbcnv.edu.
Welcome to the Great Basin College Library housed here in McMullen Hall on the Elko campus. Here, students can find the resources for research, study, or academic help for writing and anything else you'll need to be successful. Here at the Great Basin College Library, we also house a wonderful program called the Academic Success Center. This Success Center is for students that need help maybe with writing, tutoring, or anything else, like I said, to be successful in all of your classes. And if you cannot come in, there are wonderful options for virtual assistance with tutors and things like that. And the Academic Success Center also houses our testing center. We also have an amazing program here at Great Basin College Library that is the Laptops for Learners program. Here you can check out a laptop for a semester as long as you're taking 6 credits through GBC and you're at Elko, Battle Mountain, West Wendover, or the Ely campuses. You can come in and check out a laptop free.
All right. Just gonna switch back over to our main screen here and give our interpreter a little time. Sorry, that video was fairly fast.
What we've incorporated in our journey moving forward for post-secondary transition goals is to help every student shine. We're building pathways, clear pathways for our students, including roadmaps to the future, real-world learning adventures, quality time with students to discuss post-secondary goals, building a stronger community through parent summits, and district-wide teamwork development.
So as you can see here, this is kind of the roadmap of how they've really built up their program in Elko. One of the things that they attempted this year and that they're going to work on for next year is a parent summit. Due to some of the funding changes and all of those kind of snafus that our whole country has experienced over the last year, some of that has had to be kind of backburnered for a later time. But just trying to build more opportunities to connect with families, as that voice is often left out. While we have many resources in the education system, there may not be as many available to families out there. Hence why wonderful presentations such as these and conferences to get that information out for the people that need it the most is going to be so crucial.
In 15 plus years,
Jeez.
the following slides are going to show the evolution of transition planning in Elko County School District. It's taken 15 plus years, but we have developed ways to improve our practice and enhance services for students. In 2019, I attended my first Division on Career Development and Transition Conference, which steamrolled into the above bulleted points. But my 3 key points are: start small and then enlist the help of others who have your passion. Make a list of people you can reach out to for support and join local business groups. All of those can help you enhance your transition services.
And I will say the DCDT was definitely a key component for myself as well, really championing transition services. In 2019, we had the opportunity to have the DCDT conference in Reno, and the state of Nevada made it very accessible for many of our educators to go. I had the opportunity to actually work with our NSLTS team in Humboldt to bring student leaders up to that summit and present on how they're doing their dream board presentations. To really do student-led IEPs and how they created that over time and advocated for students on IEPs and 504 plans to get their accommodations and the instruction and transition services they need. So very impactful and powerful, and definitely a fabulous resource. I will say that was key on what spurred my further development and transition as well. This is a little bit of an example of kind of how we've rolled out the change to champion student-led services over time in our counties. So for us and Lander County, really relying on grants available in the community through things like VR or our local Nevada gold mines, who are kind enough to do different grants and scholarship opportunities for our schools and our community, has really brought in the money side for things that we need, but a lot of it has been free and just those that are passionate about the topic. So really providing more professional development, enhancing their self-determination skills for our educators as well as our students, linking them to resources for soft skills. I've got a Padlet down here as well that I'll drop in the chat at the end too, that has a bunch of free resources out there, as well as professional development presentations that really go through how you champion a student-led IEP, how you teach them these self-determination skills. There are resources for parents in there as well for things like an IEP exit survey at the end of the year. What are some things you're worried about going into next year for their transition to the next school, if they're going from elementary to middle school? Some things you'd like known about your child so they're a little more prepared, or some things you'd like to focus on, as well as one for the student to be able to give voice to those same exact things and really get their voice in there at every age level, at varying levels of development for what's appropriate for them. Some other components in here as well that I wanted to highlight is just that Pathful Explore. We kind of built a scope and sequence of how to do those modules for students because it is free and accessible to all districts across the state of Nevada. And Pathful Explore lets them not only explore different careers, but gives them kind of pre-ETS-esque instruction about how you build a resume, engage in professional communication skills, how to really figure out where your affinities lie for what careers you might want to explore. Here in the rules, I tend to hear three big careers that students want to do, and that's either mining, drilling, or a YouTuber. So we really want to expand what's out there and what opportunities they'll have for them and how they'll have the support. Many students think that they don't have the skills to do other careers, but there's so much out there that they can do. And then this last year, one of the new things we got was a grant from the Nevada Gold Mines to really lead a student-led enterprise. And we're looking at potentially doing a coffee cart situation, which is something they do in Humboldt County at this time, as well as something at Nutrition Break to be able to provide additional nutrition and meals to be able to apply the cooking skills they've learned in PACE Lab and the register skills live in a career type setting in our schools.
It all started through the Nevada Rural Providers Meeting, which Sarah McGowan started, and a group of us get together quarterly meetings. We have shared a drive, information, collaboration throughout the state. We work to develop the Nevada DCDT chapter, and we also promoted the conference in Reno in 2023. We have quarterly meetings, newsletter, website, and resources, and ongoing collaboration and information sharing throughout the state, but mostly targeted to rural communities.
And then this was a quote that LeighAnn Hill put in here that I feel like is so impactful and applicable. Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time. This was Thomas Edison, because truly it's those that are passionate for our students that are going to make the largest change. It doesn't always come down to funding. It doesn't come down to what do you have available to you. You can build so much in your capacity with just what you have in your community. And there's so much available online. Both LeighAnn Hill as well as myself created these Padlets, so that way these resources don't have to be dug up online for you all. They'll be accessible to you. That gives you support to be able to start implementing some of this, whether it be for your child in case you're in a county that maybe doesn't have a program fully set up yet, to give them those skills and resources that they may not have yet, or to really know what's out there in our schools and available to you so that you can really be that advocate for your child and help your special educators as well build an awesome comprehensive plan for your child. Some other components that I did want to highlight too is, if you may have seen us in a prior presentation through Nevada Lend, we created a guide and checklist for parents that educators can also use that really champions starting transition services early. Because while we talk about transition and aging out of the system, a lot of it is really building up a child's independence. And so you really want an independence plan. What skills do they need to be as successful as possible in the future? Whether that be looking at adaptive skills to be more independent, to really navigate their school setting, understanding what resources there are available in the community, because some of it is, well, once I'm out of school, what is there for me? Who's going to support me? Leading you through how to get established with things like vocational rehab. There are just so many things out there that are there for supports that we may not be aware of. And so we give you those tools to be able to do exactly that. So because Miss LeighAnn Hill was not available to us today to present live and we had the recording, she did want to leave her email here in case you have any follow-up questions for her as well, or wanted to know more about some of the things that they are doing, such as through the TAT team in Elko County, or any questions about DCDT. I will say she is the absolute expert. And then my email is here as well in case you all have any follow-up questions for me. And because we have a little more time than I expected at the end here, I'd like to pull up the Padlet to be able to highlight some of those resources that'll be available to you. So this is the Padlet that is linked in the presentation, and I'll drop it in the chat here shortly, and it'll be emailed out. I'm sure Miss Barber can get that out for y'all as well. That just highlights some of the resources that I discussed today that really helped build our transition programs from Humboldt County all the way up through here in Lander County, as well as some resources that Miss LeighAnn Hill has shared with me as well. I kind of broke them down into different sections for what may be applicable for you, whether that be early childhood onwards into kindergarten, elementary school, middle school promotion, high school transition, and then, of course, post-secondary preparation. So in the first one, when we think early childhood, not many of us may be thinking about transition skills at that time, but I have seen through my evaluations as children hit age 6 and they age out of the developmental delay category, that there tends to be a lot more unknown outside of what like a typical DACY or a Bergantz, those assessments they use, may show you. So this goes through some different skills specifically that can help your child be more independent to focus on. And if they are a child that continues on an IEP into kindergarten, that there are some different goals that may not be identified in a typical assessment that will help them be more successful. Things such as executive functioning skills. This is a great resource for parents as well. Gives you some different strategies and activities you can do with your young children to really prepare them to have that less structured, more transition heavy setting, such as kindergarten, where they may not have as many supports, as well as some home prep skills that you can do over the summer to really build up your child and get them excited for kindergarten and feel prepared. And even some planning documents where even if they don't have potentially an IEP, or if there are skills in the IEP that you would like to see seen worked on, this gives you a little scaffold that you can do as a parent to really monitor and advocate for your child and what they may need. And then for educators, a kind of guide on that transition from early childhood and into kindergarten and enhancing the individual with community supports. In elementary, this is that component I talked about of really bringing on championing student-led IEPs. This is a more age-appropriate version of a student voice in an IEP. It breaks down those different areas of input at a picture-based level, or they can do it in writing if they're a little older, that really highlights who they are as an individual and digs into what they feel like they're good at, what they feel like they could use some more support on, and some things that they'd like a teacher to know that they struggle with in school. This is my presentation on early career readiness from K through 12 that goes through a variety of resources as well as different instruction that we can integrate early to expose kids in an early level to different careers available to them, as well as dig in how we can support their one-on-one independence planning through the lifespan. This is a wonderful teacher toolkit, but also gives some great strategies for parents struggling to support their kids with homework at home. That gives you some strategies how to adaptively teach and some different extensions, accessibility tools, and universal tools on the computer that can help support your child as they're learning. And of course, executive function. Again, I know it's a big buzzword. It's all about how that brain navigates, organizes memory, all those crucial skills we need to be independent. This one goes through the lifespan from infancy into adolescence. So there's some great strategies, games, different tools that are really helpful at home and that can also be useful at school and to aid a child in understanding where they could use some more support. And then some more specific supports and tools here, specifically for things like autism or intellectual disabilities. These are different strategies of how to build up those adaptive skills in the school setting to increase their independence, as well as a copy of how to do one-on-one independence planning. A lot of times I hear a term such as a Velcro aid, where they have a one-on-one support at all times. Some, for health or safety reasons, may require that level of support, but as they age, there may be others that have different successful settings, such as lunchtime or recess. They may be a really great reader for vocabulary, but they don't quite have the comprehension. And so there might be times where we can build in their independence more successfully. So it just kind of gives you an idea of how to go through those steps, whether you're an educator or a parent, to really figure out where your child has some fabulous strengths that we can keep supporting to build up some weaknesses. And then in middle school, I have the presentation, and this was provided at last year's Transition Summit with Mr. Andrew Jensen. I have his permission to be able to share this with y'all today. It was a workshop we did on how to do some of those dream boards and to really champion those student-led IEPs. And so this is some more information on how to really get that through and how to develop one for your child or as an educator for your students. This is on I'm Determined. It's a fabulous website for parents. If you haven't heard of it before, I'mDetermined.org has a variety of resources ranging from how to understand your IEP and the special education process up through getting your voice integrated into those services. And so there's some parent support here. When you click the link, it'll bring you to the whole website as well, and some self-determination assessments that students can do to really identify where they might need some more soft skill instruction for transition that may not have been thought of otherwise. Um, Students on IEPs in particular, I've noticed that they rely very heavily on adult support. And the hardest part I would say about an IEP transition into adulthood is going on to a 504. You no longer have that one-on-one case manager that's really monitoring all that they did for your child before. You may not have all the resources and portfolio ready to go for your 504 that you could have been building through time. So this just kind of gives you those steps on things to think of as they age to really support the student being able to identify, this is what I need, this is how I can advocate for it, or I'm not sure what to do in XYZ. What's a problem solving method I can do to get there? So that way it really enhances their executive function, their confidence, and their self-reliance. And then these are some different extensions I put in here for assistive technology, some different integrated universal extensions that can really support and increase independence. While I have this in the middle school zone, this of course could be used for elementary as well. It just might need a little bit more training for the student on how to use them. Often we hear things like speech to text, text to speech, but do they really know how to do that outside of their Chromebook, outside of an iReady or map assessment learning platform? How can they use it in their community? It kind of goes through how you'd use those different extensions more flexibly. And some different tools such as AI and read and write that are text extensions you can put in there that have things like interactive live dictionaries, text highlighting as they go to visually discriminate. It has translation options, it has visuals. There are just so many things that our online technology can do for us. And AI in particular in writing has been a big concern from educators. Well, how do I use it so it's not just cheating, right? So it's not just going to give them the answer. This is actually a step-by-step prompting system of how to use AI as an actual tool to help them comprehend and navigate the information at varying levels of ability. So there are some great resources in here that can help educators as well as parents to really how to adapt text. Because out there in a big world, we're going to have a lot of complex information coming at us, whether that be the workplace, navigating the bus and transit system, figuring out how to vote. All of these resources can be highly applicable outside of academics to support them in their independence in life. And then finally, high school and onwards into post-secondary resources here. Nevada trip, I always try to talk about that as much as possible. For those of you that have been through this transition conference, it has been a key highlight. There are fabulous resources throughout here in Nevada trip. As a parent, your student can create one and have you as a co-pilot so you can see where they're at in this process and save their information. But you can also create a visitor's pass if you just want the information in there. And you can go through this roadmap of transition from early childhood all the way through into post-secondary that shows everything available to you for your child and things you may not have thought of before. It is a great reference for educators, parents, young adults, anyone navigating this system and preparing for upwards and onwards. It is a fabulous resource hub. And then finally, I just have some helpful resources for parents and educators that are things like predictors of transition success. So if we have a student that we're not too sure what their transition services may look like, these really highlight the key components of what's going to be an indicator for success for your child in the future that may not have been thought of. An example would be independent living skills. I've often heard like a student with a specific learning disability may not require any kind of living skills in the future. Well, honestly, all of our teenagers could probably use a little more instruction on things like budgeting, how to understand public transit, all those components. And when you add a learning disability into that mix, it can be even harder to understand it. And so these just highlight some of those components that we may not have thought of before. And then really digging into other community-based partnerships that are available. For things such as vocational rehabilitation that shows services available in the education setting, as well as to you and families in the community on how to support your child, as well as when they are a young adult and out of our high school transition system and onwards into the young adulthood, the support's available to them. I also have activities in here that are completely free for things like soft skills to pay the bills, that walks you through specific modules you can do, whether you're a parent at home working to help your child for their future career, or if you're in the education system and you want to do a lesson for transition. This breaks it down into different modules of soft skills that different things are needed for vocational success. So some examples of what might be in here would be communication with different types of people, how you would talk to your parent versus how you're going to talk to a supervisor versus how you're going to talk to your friend. It really digs into those implied components, even listening skills, and where you might want to orient yourself if you struggle with things such as eye contact, some different tips and tricks that you can do to still show active listening skills. If you struggle with comprehension or attention, some different strategies you can use to orient yourself and keep you engaged throughout the lesson. It's a really great guide to be able to give you some of those pieces without having to reinvent the wheel. And then I also have some presentations in here that were provided from our state to support student-led IEPs for things like dream boards to really understand the connection within the IEP and what the IEP means and how to get their voice into the IEP to really reflect their needs and goals. And then the last piece I have here is from NTAC, which is another fabulous resource, which really gets into different collaborative guides for transition planning. While I have this in post-secondary, I like to see it being used earlier on at that age 14 level because we always want to be in a future planning mindset. But it does give you some different assessment components and ways to collect data if you're not sure on where to go with your child or with your student for transition services, as well as going through different areas of those indicators for success and how to support them in goal planning. So really, really great resource. And NTACT has way more resources past that on their website. Definitely a fabulous place to peruse when you have time. And then just some different examples for educators on how to provide information to parents when they are making that big transfer, including information like their transfer of rights when they're 17, the indicator 13 requirements we have in our IEPs, and then the trainings that we've had relating to adulthood and onwards from their high school transition. And I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm going to put this link in the chat so that you all have it available to you today.
And I put some other resources. NTACT is transitionta.org. I put that in the chat, as well as the DCDT information and gottransition.org. All really good resources for transition. Sky, thank you for walking us through all of that. I can't wait to spend more time on that. And Marcia says, why doesn't the rest of Nevada utilize all of these great resources? And you wouldn't mind if we all shared those resources?
Nope, share away.
Okay. I will also share with the Washoe County School District transition team. Phenomenal things there in your resources. Grace says your Padlet is beautifully done, an amazing resource, Sky. And Marcia said she remembered when moving from NEIS into the school district was super scary, that those early childhood resources would have been really helpful. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Sky? Please feel free to turn your cameras on and unmute yourself. Super informal here. And Kamala, thank you for commenting on Alyssa. She said she's worked with Alyssa and she's wonderful and really helpful. And that was the Great Basin. Is it Great Basin College? Is that what it's called, Sky?
Yeah, Great Basin Community College.
Great Basin Community College.
I'd just like to jump in. I mean, you've got me so excited here, Sky. And my son's 28 now, but seeing how you've put together, this whole comprehensive transition from, early childhood all the way up to adulthood is huge. So many people that we worked with over the years around transition were looking at just the little piece, that little, couple of years of age, in which my son was experiencing. rather than looking at it holistically and having one place where everything is there. I mean, this is remarkable. It is remarkable. And I have always felt that rural communities come together in a way that an urban center just can't. You know, you all pull together the resources, you make it happen. And you know, it just is a phenomenal difference from the experience that we have in an urban setting. And I just want to compliment you on that, and just would love to hear, you know, what motivated you to thinking so globally about transition.
Thank you. I would firstly agree. Yeah, I think it's a blessing and a curse being rural. I think the blessing is we have such a tight-knit community where we can have more access to our parents and our community entities to really support us and build us in the education system. I will say, having come from Arizona, very, very large cities, very large populace, especially in Phoenix, where I prior did my practicum experience, is it's much harder to get those relationships outside of what your state is providing to you. So I will say I do love that part as well. You have a little more freedom to be able to implement some of this stuff too. As far as what really was my aha moment for how to start early and why it's so important to start early, as a school psychologist, my training is from early childhood onwards through past into adulthood. So I already have that initial scope in my head of, okay, we're starting here, how can we get here? But the largest plot hole that I heard was from my students, actually. Because our IEP goals, right, over the years, oh yes, we look every year, we change it, they're building, they're building, they're building. But then I started realizing from my students, they're saying things like, I like this accommodation that gives me extended time because I really struggle with time management. And then it made me start looking at their IEPs, and I don't see a goal for time management. And then I start looking back, and I'm realizing, okay, the student has had extended time through the years for so long now, but when they're going to get into college, right, they're maybe a junior in high school now, they're only going to get maybe a day of extended time. They're not going to have this maybe monthly way that they're given, or maybe they're given an extra week. And even if they're given that extra week, maybe they're still struggling with a certain skill. Well, why are they struggling with the time management? Is it the length of the essay? So, really digging into the why. And in Humboldt County, I had the opportunity to go through some of the evaluation reports with students and help them understand their cognitive strengths and weaknesses. And they had no idea. And that's when I started to realize us as a person, right? We're so protective for our students. Yep, we're going to advocate for this accommodation. We're going to advocate that they need this, they need this, they need this, without realizing they still need these other things too. And if we can address the skill, then we're not necessarily going to be as reliant on those really heavy accommodations in the future. Or if the student understands why they have a certain accommodation, but they understand they have a certain strength with that accommodation, now they know how to use that accommodation appropriately or those tools to really navigate and address the root of the difficulty. And then also understanding in the future, it may look like this and not what you have right now in your IEP when you're on a 504 plan. And it's kind of that light bulb of, oh man, well, I can do that. And hearing that, I don't know if I can do that, but seeing they have the skill, that's what really motivated me to realize we need to address this early because now they're a junior and are in that moment of, oh my goodness, I only have another year and I'm going to have to figure it out and I want to go to college, but I don't know all of this stuff. Self. If we figure it out even sooner and earlier in their lifespan, they're going to get those self-determination skills. They're going to have that confidence. They're going to be aware of what their strengths and weaknesses and plot holes are, and they'll be more aware of what they have available to them. A lot of times we are the experts, and so we talk to a student, not as much with them. And so giving that voice early on, I felt was really going to make the difference. And when I started building these NSLTS teams, to really give them that voice and confidence. The fact that the students then wanted to advocate to the board. We had some students do it in Humboldt, and now again here in Lander, they got so excited. They're like, we need to share this far and wide because I see my fellow students struggling with this and they don't know. And maybe that means the adults don't know either, and they wanted to bring that voice to the table. It was just so incredibly impactful to see that confidence come through over the course of just 1 year to the point where they wanted to advocate for like a systems level cultural change. And it's that student inspiration, I think, that keeps me going through all of this. I'm not stipend to do any of the extra transition work. It's just a work of passion because I see the payout.
Yeah, I wish that there were more educators that thought like you across Nevada. We have to get you out there, Sky. Educate everybody.
I'll be presenting more and more as much as I can.
Right, right. Anybody else have any questions or comments or share an experience you've had?
Well, not wanting to manipulate the conversation, but a thought that came to me, Sky, as you were just talking is, I think at the Family Navigation Network, we have experienced that a number of parents haven't talked to their child about having a disability. So the kid doesn't even know that there's anything going on that they need to be paying attention to, or like you were saying, addressing, what is the strength, what is the weakness, and all of that. What kind of guidance would you have for parents around, having the talk, you know?
So, I will say for our older students out there, the NSLTS teams just came out with partnership with Laderick Horn, who is a great champion and poet of students with disabilities on IEPs and 504 plans about disability disclosure, how to really navigate and understand your disability and tell others about it. That can be a great resource to really navigate how you self-disclose. But as far as identifying, okay, now you're a parent and you've got to self-disclose, right, with your child and help them understand what is this disability. There are a variety of social stories on YouTube that are free that I adore, that really break it down at different developmental levels of understanding your disability. And then there is a resource, and I have it on my Padlet, I believe. If not, I'll send a follow-up email with it through Ivy Mount, which is My Disability and Me, that goes through some different ways to understand a disability at a skill-based level, so not just focusing on the label, and resources on how to then get that voice into the IEP as well for them to understand, okay, this is the plan I have, this is how it connects to me. The dream boards that Nevada supports have components of that as well that can be helpful in those discussions for them to really understand, why do I have this plan? What does it mean? Because while the type of disability you have, I do feel is, of course, important, really understanding your individual impact is the larger component that I would focus on as a parent. Hey, you have autism. Okay, well, you've met one child with autism. As we all know, you've met one child with autism, right? It's not going to be one size fits all. And there's a lot of bias I found, especially with my high school students, where they figure out, oh, I have a disability and this is what it is. Well, I'm nothing like XYZ. That's why I think it's so important to start with the skill components and kind of lead into that conversation of, that's linked to this. Because there's this disability present, it doesn't mean you have the inability to do all this other stuff. Disability, the dis is only 3 letters in that word, right? The rest is all ability. These are the abilities you have. And these are some weaknesses you might struggle with, but these are the strengths you have that are going to build those weaknesses up. But that's why you've got to do XYZ. That's why you need this accommodation, right? That's why you're going to use this skill. That's why we've got this goal. Really giving the reason to the why, I think, is the largest component that can help our students really buy into IEP services, especially because they might not see necessarily, well, I have dyslexia, but it doesn't look like that for me like it does for my friend. Well, it may not look that way for you, but this is what it does look like for you. So let's see how we can build on it. Because you can create a developmentally appropriate, fabulous IEP, but if your student doesn't buy into that or they don't really see a need for why they have this, it's never going to give them the most beneficial impact they can. So really focusing on the skills first when they're younger, and then as they age, using some of those social story components can be helpful if there's a comprehension deficit, but really focusing on why they have something in place and how their individual skills play into it. That would be my largest recommendation.
That's amazing. Kamala says this sounds like a great resource. Put me down for wanting that one. And Stephanie's dealing with the exact situation in her classroom right now. This week, I spent some time with a friend on the coast of California who also has a daughter with an intellectual disability. She told me all about this program called Social Thinking developed by Michelle Winner in San Francisco. So I put the link in there for anybody who's interested and it's all about learning how to move through this world and executive function and relationships and boundaries and decision making. So hopefully that can be helpful as well. Well, thank you so much, Sky. It was lovely to have you. We have a survey So if everybody would just take, it's literally like 90 seconds. It's going to help us to know how to, serve you all best. There's a QR code there to the survey. It would be super helpful if you all would fill this out for us.